Hello everyone, this is me Debosmita Sarkar. Today we are going to talk about CBSE Class 9 History Chapter 4 Forest, Society and Colonialism. So let's begin. Why deforestation? Deforestation means disappearance of forest and is not a recent problem. It began many centuries ago, but under colonial rule it became more systematic and extensive. Land to be improved. Over the centuries, as the population grew and the demand for food went up, peasants started clearing forest and breaking new land. British encouraged the production of commercial crops like jute, sugar, wheat and cotton. In the 19th century, the demand for these crops increased. The colonial state thought that forests were unproductive in the early 19th century. So, between 1880 and 1920, cultivated areas and the expansion of cultivation showed a sign of progress. Sleepers on the tracks. In England, by the early 19th century, oak forests were disappearing. Such parties were sent to India to explore the forest resources. Railways spread from the 1850s. Railways were essential for colonial trade and for the movement of imperial troops. From the 1860s, the railway network expanded rapidly. Trees started falling as the railway tracks spread through India. The government gave out contracts to individuals to supply the required quantities. Forests around the railway tracks started disappearing. Plantations. Large areas of natural forest cleared to make way for tea, coffee and rubber. Plantation to meet Europe's growing need for these commodities. These forests were taken over the colonial government and gave vast areas to European planters at cheap rates to plant tea or coffee. The rise of commercial forestry. British were worried that reckless use of trees by traders and use of forest by local people would destroy forest. Dietrich Brandes, a German expert, became the first Inspector General of Forest in India. He realized that a proper system had to be introduced to manage the forest and people need to be trained in the science of conservation. But it needed legal sanction. In 1864, Indian Forest Service was set up in Dehradun in 1906. In scientific forestry, natural forest which had lots of different types of trees were cut down. In 1906, that Forest Act was enacted, which was amended twice, once in 1878 and then in 1927. The Act of 1878 divided forest into three categories: reserved, protected and village forest. The best forests were called reserved forest. How were the lives of people affected? Villagers wanted forest with species of different types to satisfy their needs of fuel, fodder and leaves. On the other hand, the forest department wanted trees like teak and sal suitable for building ships or railways. Roots, leaves, fruits and tubers were used for many things. In the forest, almost everything was available, such as herbs, yokes, ploughs, bamboo, etc. From the fruit of mawa tree, oil was extracted for the purpose of cooking and lighting lamps. The forest was the Forest Act meant severe hardship for villagers across the country. The people were forced to steal wood from the forest. Forest guard used to take bribes if they got caught. Police constables and forest guards harassed people by demanding free food from them. How did forest rules affect cultivation? Practice of shifting cultivation or Sweden cultivation was introduced. during European colonialism or Sweden agriculture. It is a traditional agricultural practice in many parts of Asia, Africa, and South America. In shifting cultivation, parts of the forest are cut and burnt in rotation. After the monsoon rains, seeds are sown in the ashes and the crop is harvested by October November. For a couple of years, such as plots are cultivated and then left for 12 to 18 years. On these plots, a mixture of crops is grown. According to European foresters, this practice is harmful for the forest. This type of cultivation also made it difficult for the government to calculate taxes. So, the government decided to ban shifting cultivation. Who could hunt? People who lived near forest survived by hunting deer, partridges, and a variety of small animals. The practice was prohibited by the forest laws, and those who were caught hunting were punished for poaching. In India, hunting of tigers and other animals is a part of the culture of the court and nobility for centuries. The scale of hunting increased under colonial rule to such an extent that various species became almost extinct. Rewards were given for killing wild animals. Some areas of the forest were reserved for hunting. New trades, new employments, and new services. New opportunities opened up in trade in India. Forest trade was not new. It existed from the medieval period where Adivasi communities used to trade elephants and other goods like hides, horns, silk, cocoons, ivory, bamboo, species, fibers, grasses, gums, and resins through nomadic communities like the Banjaras. But trade was completely regulated by the government, which gave them many large European trading firms the sole right to trade in the forest products of particular areas. New opportunities of work did not improve the well-being of the people. Rebellion and the forest. Forest communities rebelled against the changes that were being imposed on them. Some of the leaders of these movements are the Sidhu and Kanu in the Santhal Parganas, Birsa Munda of Chota Nagpur, or Alluri Sitaram Raju of Andhra Pradesh. The people of Bastard. Bastard is located in the southernmost part of Chhattisgarh and borders Andhra Pradesh, Orissa, and Maharashtra. The Bastard central part is on a plateau, and to the north is the Chhattisgarh plain, and to its south is the Godavari plain. Different communities live in Bastard, such as Maria and Muria Gons, Durwas, Bhatras, and Halbas. The people of Bastard believed that each village was given its land by the earth, and in return they look after the earth by making some offerings at each agricultural festival. Local villagers look after all the natural resources within their boundaries, and people pay a small fee called Dev Sari, Dand, or Man in exchange if they want to take some wood from the forest of another village. The fears of the people. In 1905, colonial government proposed to reserve two-thirds of the forest in and stop shifting cultivation, hunting, and collection of forest produce. Some people used to stay in forest by working free for the forest department, and these are called forest villagers. Villagers for a long run suffered from increased land rents and frequent demands of labor and goods. People started discussing these issues in their village council bazaars and at festivals. Durwas of the Kanger forest took initiative where reservation first took place. Bazaars were looted, the houses of officials and traders, schools and police stations were burned and robbed, and grain redistributed. British troops were sent to suppress the rebellion. After independence, the same practice of keeping people out of forest and reserving them for industrial use continued. Forest transformations in Java. Java is famous as a rice producing island in Indonesia. But there was a time when it was covered mostly with forest. In Java, the Dutch started forest management. Villages existed in the fertile plains, and there were also many communities living in the mountains and practicing shifting cultivation. The woodcutters of Java. The Kalangs of Java were skilled forest cutters and shifting cultivators. They are experts in harvesting teak and for the kings to build their palaces. When the Dutch began to gain control over the forest in the 18th century, they tried to make Kalangs work under them. In 1770, the Kalangs resisted by attacking a Dutch fort at Juana, but the uprising was suppressed. Dutch scientific forestry. In the 19th century, Dutch enacted forest law in Java restricting villagers' access to forest. Woodcutters only be cut for making river boats or constructing houses. Villagers were punished for grazing cattle, transporting wood without a permit, or traveling an forest road with horse, carts, or cattle. Firstly, the Dutch imposed rains on land being cultivated in the forest and then exempted some villages from these rains if they worked collectively to provide free labor and buffaloes for cutting and transporting timber. This was known as the Blandong dynasty system. Samin's challenge. Surontiko Samin of Radu Blatung village, a teak forest village, questioned in the state ownership of the forest and argued that the state had not created the wind, water, earth, and wood, so it could not own it. Soon a widespread movement developed. Some of the Saminists protested by lying down on their land when the Dutch came to survey it, while others refused to pay taxes or fines or perform labor. War and deforestation. The First World War and the Second World War had a major impact on forest. In Java, the Dutch followed a scorched earth policy, destroying sawmills and burning huge piles of giant teak logs. After the war, it was difficult for the Indonesian Forest Service to get this land back. New developments in forestry. Conservation of forests has become a more important goal in many places across India, from Mizoram to Kerala. Dense forests have survived only because villages protect them in sacred groves known as Sarnas, Devarak, Kudu, Kan, Rai, etc. So thank you. With this we came to the end. Thank you. Please do like, share and subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to comment in the comment section below. Bye bye. Stay home and stay safe.